Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. Are you struggling with your trailer wiring? It happens a lot, and we're going to take some of the mystery out of it for you here in this video, so stick around. So nothing is more frustrating is when you hook up a trailer and your lights don't work. Especially if it's not your trailer, you don't even know if it's wired right. So there's stuff you got to do to fix that issue, because you need to have your lights going down the road to warn other people as to what your intentions are to be safe. So we're going to take the 12-volt wiring mystery away. There's basically, when you're dealing with pickups, there's two systems that you can deal with. There's 4-wire and then there's 7-wire. We'll show you what each of them look like. So here's an example of your 7-wire plug. Most of your newer vehicles, like my Chevy Silverado there and my wife's Suburban, will have your 7-wire connector for trailers. What they will also have is a 4-wire connector that looks like this. Mine has both. So let me tell you the difference in these two. If you've got a larger trailer where there's a lot more going on, like a 5th-wheel trailer or something like that, camp trailer, chances are you're going to have the 7-wire plug. Now, if you've got just a little utility trailer for like hauling quads or something like that, generally you're just going to go with the 4-wire plug because that's all you need. Now, there are round 4-wire plugs back in the day, but this has become the standard now of these 4-wire flat. So let's explain to you what these wires do. So look at your color of your wires. You have a green, a yellow, a brown, and a white. So your green is always your right turn. Your yellow is your left turn. Your brown is your tail marker lights. And the white is a ground. So why isn't there brake lights, you might ask? Well, your brake lights on a 4-wire system go through the turn signal wires. So this will go to the bright bulb in your tail light, and it'll either act as a turn signal or a brake light both. So that's why you only need 4 wires. Now, a 4-wire plug, the plug on the trailer side, is going to have 5 wires, as you see here. The reason it does is because you're going to have 2 tail light wires coming off of the same pole. You can see there's only 4 poles, but there's 5 wires. They split it in here so you have 2 tail marker lights or wires, because you've got to go down opposite sides of the trailer and you need marker lights on both sides, and that's convenient that they do that for you. Now, in a 7-wire system, there's a lot more going on. I've got some of my wires cut short here. As you can see, I've only got 4 wires actually going to be connected. But you can also see a blue wire here, a black wire, and a red wire that we're not using. So just like always, your brown wire is going to be your tail markers. Your white's going to be your ground. Green is right turn, yellow is left turn. Now the blue, if you have electric brakes, that's for your brakes. And if you have a 12-volt feed from your vehicle, which is in your 7-wire plug coming from your vehicle to charge a battery or whatever on your trailer, that's going to be your red. And your black can be used as an auxiliary for something else that you want to do on your trailer. But if you have like a camp trailer that has backup lights, that's what the black wire would be used for. So there's your 3 extra wires. Now the reason I'm only using 4 is because I'm going to use my 7-wire plug on my truck. This actually had a 5-wire plug on it, because they used to make those too. You probably still get them, but not very common. This had a 5-wire plug on it, and there's only 4-wire harness in the trailer. So they added a brake wire somewhere, but we're going to deal with that later. Let's stick with the basics right now. So I've got connectors already on my pigtail that's going to the truck, which is going to connect to this pigtail down here. Now the issue we're having is this trailer that we purchased recently at auction has been what I call farmered up, which means farmers deal with stuff every day on the ranch and they don't necessarily want to run to town every time they need something. So when I say farmered up, it's not a bad thing. They use what they got. So all my wires from here should match down here in a perfect world. But when I get down here, instead of a yellow wire and a brown wire, I have a black and white wire. So I don't know which feed is coming through which. And I also got a black and white wire over there on that side. So we have to run these down to figure out what they are. Now we're putting new lights on this trailer is why I'm having to go through this. I've already installed my new marker lights up front, and that was easy because there's only one wire coming out of there. So I know that's the marker light wire. So I didn't have to run that one down. Now these lights, along with my new tail lights, these get grounded through the trailer to the metal that you're mounting it to. So they'll be grounded when you run the white wire from your pigtail and ground it to the trailer. It's going to get ground through the metal in the trailer. So these two wires coming out of this light fixture, there's one wire for the low beam or the what you call it, the dimmer light bulb in there. And there's one wire for the brighter one, which would be your brake lights and your tail lights. Your dimmer one would be your marker lights. So you would think on this light, and I've been proven wrong before, but this is the way this manufacturer does it because I've already tested these lights by using my battery here. You would think that the brighter wire would be on this red hot colored wire and your tail marker would be on this black wire. Well, this light is exactly opposite. The red wire is our tail marker and the black wire is our bright turn and stop lamp. So always check your lights before you put them on. I ran into this on the barbecue trailer. If you remember when we went through there, we hooked this up with the red wire for the turn and brake, which was opposite. I got these lights at the same store, so same manufacturer, same issue. So check these. All you got to do is put your wires on a 12-volt source. I have these fancy little wire clips, test wires. So hook the ground wire to here, which would be your black wire off of your battery. Your red wire, you can probe each one of these wires to see which one's which. So back to the task at hand. We have to figure out what the black wire does and what the white wire does, and hopefully we're consistent on both sides. Hopefully if the black wire is the turn and stop light, hopefully the black wire on that side is also that way. So what we have to do is we have the harness coming out the front of the trailer here. So you can see we're clipped to our yellow wire. Our black wire is just clipped to the metal here on the trailer. So we're going to go back there on the left-hand side. Hopefully this trailer was wired to code, so the yellow should end up on the left-hand side in the back. So let's go check. So to check our lights in the back, we have this little test light here. So before you get started, make sure your test light works. So we'll touch our ground to our ground terminal, touch the light to the hot terminal. You can see our light bulb lights up, so we know our test light works. So now we can go back and check our wires. Okay, we're back here to check our wire. We'll touch the black one first, nothing. Touch the white one, we got power. Okay, so our yellow wire comes to here. Now you would think that we were done, but we got to go check the other side too to make sure there's no power over there, to make sure the yellow isn't being used for like tail markers, because if we have power on both sides, they're using the yellow for both. So I've tested our right side wires. There's no power in either one of those, so we are good. So we know that our left turn wire, which will be the black wire on our light that we put in, will be connected to the white wire here. So let's switch to green up front and see which one is the right turn over on the other side. Okay, we're just going to unplug there and go right over to the green. Make sure we're not touching anything else. So we're on the right hand side. We're going to assume that the white wire over here is also our turn and stop. So let's hit that. We have power there and no power there. So on both sides, our white wire is our turn and stop lamp. So that's fairly consistent, so that's good. So our black wire then should be our tail marker light. So we'll go switch to the brown up front. Okay, off the green onto the brown. There we go. Okay, we're still on the right side. We should have power to this black wire in a perfect world. You can use your fingers to touch it because it's not going to shock you. 12 volt won't shock you unless you cross ground to power. So we're not getting anything here. So we need to check our ground here. Make sure we're grounded. So we'll move that around a little bit and make sure we got a good ground, because that could be our issue too. Now let's touch the black wire again. Okay, now we have power. Here we go. Let's check over on the left side, see if the black wire has power there. All right, checking the black wire. Mess with our ground again. Got all this new paint on here. It's not wanting to ground. Try that. Okay, got power. So good. Black wire here, tail marker, white wire, stop and turn, both sides. So at least we're consistent there. The easiest way to tell it all is our clearance light marker here is on, and this one over here should be on as well. Here we go. So all that leaves is our red wire. So we should have a ground wire going somewhere, connected somewhere on the trailer. So let's check to see if that red wire is the ground. And what we got to do that is we take our ground wire that we had over here on the trailer, we connect it to the red like that. We'll take our hot wire and connect it to the brown, which we know is our tail, and we can check here with the marker lights. So we're connected to our brown wire and our marker lights are on. So our red wire is the ground, because if that was not the ground, those wires would not work. So I'll show you. I'll pull this wire off of there. Our lights are no longer on. So cool deal. 4 wires to 4 wires. Let me show you what we're talking about with our tail lights here. I've got the ground wire from the battery connected to our post, mounting post. So we'll first connect it to our black wire here. You see that's a bright light there. Now we'll connect it to the red wire. See how that light's dimmer? That's your marker light. Black wire is your brake and tail light. Now the reason that matters is if you switch these out, your wires on your trailer are going to be crossed up, because whenever you have a turn signal going off, if you connect the wrong wire, you're going to send power to all of your marker lights, and your marker lights will flash or do something weird, or when you put your brake light or put your brake on, your marker lights will come on. So that's why you got to check those. Now this little clear lens underneath our stop, turn, and tail light is for if you have a license plate mounted underneath your light. They make a flange with 2 holes in it that you can mount a license plate to that goes right behind this. So you can buy the same place you get your lights. That clear lens will illuminate your license plate. So now that we know which wires are which, let's go ahead and get our new lights mounted. We'll get those wired up, and then we'll do a test before we put our harness together up there. Got our lights mounted, wires connected, so let's run through a quick check. We're connected to our ground and our green wire, so our right turn and stop should be on. And it is, and we can tell that's the bright lamp. So now we're going to change to the yellow, which should put on our left turn and stop. There we go. And our left turn and stop is on. So let's switch to our brown wire, and that should turn all of our lights on. Marker light, marker light. If you have a marker light in the back, it'll be red and not amber. Marker light, and marker light. Sweet. So now we can wire our pigtail into our harness coming from our trailer, and then we'll hook up the pickup and we'll run through and make sure everything works. Now eventually I'm going to put a junction box, which is really good to do on a trailer. It's a plastic junction box with a whole bunch of terminals in it. I'm going to mount it right here, so the wires from the trailer will come in and the wires from the pigtail will come in, and it connects in that box. So if you've got any issues, you just have to take the cover off the box and probe those. Okay, we've got our 7-wire plug hooked up to the truck. We've got our trailering system running. It runs through all the lights, so you don't have to call your spouse to come help you. You can see the markers are on. Let's go back here and we can run through our lights. So there's our brake lights, there's our left turn, and we can confirm that by looking at the truck. There's our right turn. Sweet. See if our other marker light is on, and it is. Our trailer is road ready. Now I pre-wired this 7-wire plug, which you can get at any automotive store or farm store, whatever. But to go through it with you, what you'll do is this plug will come by itself. You got to take this little tiny screw out here, don't lose it, and then the body of the plug will push out through the outer shell and be exposed. This hole here will be open. So you want to make sure this screw here is loose. Take the shell, run it down your wire, because you're going to have to put that on last. You're going to strip out your wires inside, connect them to the inner part of the plug, and then pull the wire, run the inner part back into the shell, and then tighten up your set screw again. Now, to know which wire goes where on what terminal inside this plug, the manufacturers make it really easy. All of your terminals are marked with a 2-letter marking. So your right turn will be RT, left turn will be LT, your auxiliary, like your red wire, will be like AX for auxiliary. Your tail lights, marker lights, will have a TM for tail and marker. Your brake will be a BK for brake. Your ground will be GD or GN for ground. They're all marked on the inside. Your center terminal here is for your backup, which I don't know why they do that. I would do ground in that terminal. And you can do that if you're wiring your own plug on your truck, but these come pre-wired from the factory. So the old farmers back in the day, they would wire these plugs however they wanted to wire them, because most of the time they were installing those on their pickup. So they just grabbed wires and put in there, and then they made their trailer match whatever terminal was in there. The problem was when you go use somebody else's trailer, you had to completely rewire it to be able to use it. So if you wire these things to code like we did, anybody can use this trailer. So it's not hard to do. Everything's marked on the inside of here, so you will be matched up when you plug into your plug on the vehicle. Now, if you've got an older vehicle where you don't have a plug and you've got to wire it in, just make sure you're going, any female plug that you put on your vehicle will also have those markings on the inside to tell you which wire goes where. Some of them will have a color instead of the RT for right turn. It'll just say GRN for green. It'll go that way. But that's how you do it. Obviously, you don't have to wire these. These are pre-wired for you. So you don't have to worry. They only go together one way. And this covered one here is your ground. This is all your lights there. So we can take a deeper dive. That's basic 12-volt wiring. If you want to end it there, that's fine. But if you want to stick around, we'll get a little deeper, talking about trailer brakes and stuff like that. So if you've been around the channel, you know when we got this trailer, it had hydraulic brakes on it, which meant there was a big surge brake unit that was mounted up here on the tongue that activated the brakes when you slow down. The tongue and the truck would create pressure here that would work a master cylinder, sending fluid back to the brake drums, working the brakes when you slowed down. Now this has been converted, and I was very pleased to find out it was converted to electric brakes. So what they did was they replaced the hydraulic backing plates with electric backing plates behind the brake drum. So now they're electric brakes. So your backing plate on these electric brakes will have two wires coming out of it, and that's the plate behind. If you reach around behind the brake drum, you'll feel a metal plate against the wheel there. So there'll be two wires coming out. It doesn't matter which wire you use for hot on that. It doesn't matter at all. One of those wires needs to be grounded, and one of those wires needs to be connected to the blue wire coming from the truck. And that connects your wires. Now, anytime you have electric brakes, which was a mystery on this trailer because it was missing, if you have electric brakes, you have to have an auxiliary battery on your trailer, a 12-volt battery. And they're usually a smaller battery like a motorcycle battery or something like that. They're not big, huge batteries, but they're 12 volt. So your red wire coming from your truck, your auxiliary wire, gets wired into that battery to keep it charged as you go down the road. Now what that battery is used for is your breakaway system. So this is a breakaway unit that was mounted to this trailer. Now there was no battery on this trailer, so this breakaway unit was not going to work. So maybe they had this mounted on here just to get them by any kind of inspection if they got pulled over. But any law enforcement officer that was worth his weight in salt would notice that there's no battery on this trailer. So this would connect up here somewhere. I think it was connected right here. And then this little cable, the end of it gets connected to your vehicle. So if your vehicle, for some reason, the hitch breaks or something like that, it pulls this little plug out of here. And what this plug does, there's contacts on the inside of this that this plug keeps from connecting. So as this plug gets pulled out, the contacts come together and allow power to go through these wires. One of these wires gets connected to the battery, the auxiliary here, and the other wire gets connected to the blue trailer brake wire that comes from your truck back to your brakes. So what happens is when you pull this out, it takes juice from that battery, send it back to the brakes, locking your brakes up. Because if you're braking away from your vehicle, you don't want your trailer sailing down the road going to kill somebody. You want this thing to stop as soon as possible. So that's what your electric breakaway does. It sends power when you break away to your brake drums, locks the brakes on your trailer, causing it to come to a stop and not careen into somebody. So that's how that works. So that's your brakes. And that we've also explained through that process on what your red wire is for. Now, your brown wire, which is your backup lights, like I said, a lot of your camp trailers will have backup lights because you're backing into camping spots and stuff like that. So there will be another wire, if you buy the correct lights that have the backup light, there'll be a clear lens facing to the rear. There'll be another wire coming out of your light when you buy the correct type of light, and that will be your backup light, which that black wire would connect to. So that's a little bit deeper dive. I know it's a little more complicated, but it's not terrible, and that explains the other 3 wires for your 7-wire system. Now when you're doing probing, trying to figure out your trailer, if these wires aren't color-coded correctly on your trailer, it doesn't mean you can't use them. As long as you run them down and find out what they do on the other end of the trailer, the yellow can be tail marker lights. It doesn't matter if that's the way your trailer is hooked up. You just have to wire it accordingly here before it goes to your vehicle. But you're going to find that on old trailers. When I got this trailer where the pigtail is here, there was a huge conglomeration of just bald rat's nest of wires right here that we cut all that out of there. It was a mess. So now we got a real clean installation here. Now to hook up the brakes, since there's no brake wire in this original harness because it used to have hydraulic brakes, we're going to have to run a brake wire down there. Now those wires from the tires go somewhere, so I got to get underneath this trailer and figure out where that wire terminates in here, and then we can put some conduit underneath here or something to run that blue wire in, and then we can connect it to our pigtail that goes to our truck because the wire is there. Or like I said, once we get the junction box, all we got to do is wire it into that junction box. Now say you're having issues with your trailer lights. I'll tell you a couple troubleshooting deals for your trailer lights. If when you're going down the road in the dark and your lights are flickering, your marker lights, and they flicker, what's happened is you don't have a ground from the plug to your trailer. Your ground wire is broke loose and you're grounding through your hitch. And as your hitch bounces around on your ball, you're breaking ground, which will cause your lights to flicker, and that's the issue. So what you got to do is on your pigtail coming to your trailer, figure out where that ground wire is connected and reconnect it because it's come loose. Now say there's lights not working. Obviously you can check them by putting some 12-volt power to them to see if they'll work. But if the lights work and you're not getting juice back in here, then you have a break in the wire somewhere else. Now when I build a trailer, I bring solid wire clear to the back like you saw when we did the barbecue trailer, so that I don't have connections that I've got to check. I know if I've got power up there, I'm going to have power back here because there's no breaks in that wire. But if you don't know who built your trailer or how they did it, you may have splices along the way in your trailer. So if you need to troubleshoot power, you're not getting power to the back, you want to do it systematically. You want to start up here at your plug, remove your plug, and probe. There should be a diagram right on your little flapper thing. You can probe the one that's supposed to have power. And if you're not getting power here, the problem is with your truck, you might have a blown fuse in your fuse block for something. And if you plug into oddball trailers, you're going to get that, because if the wires are crossed up, you can blow fuses in your trailer or your pickup. So if you've got no power here, that's where you start. Now if you have power here, plug your pigtail in, come to where your pigtail makes the connection, check the power there. If you've got power there, go to the next connection and check the power there. Now what's handy about these test lights is they have a real sharp pointy end on them. So you can actually push that into the wire and it'll connect the metal inside, and you can probe wires. You don't have to cut the wires to probe them. You can just probe right into the wire itself and check. And you just go on down the line until you run out of power. So wherever you run out of power, there's some place in front of that that's disconnected. So you have to do it systematically though. Start up here and just work your way back. So the other problem you can have, you can see our lights are mounted through the fender and our wiring is inside the fender in here. So when you blow a tire, and I say when and not if, because inevitably a tire may blow, when all that mess is going around in here, you lose all your wiring. So that's another thing that you're going to have to deal with. I always carry these wiring kits. I have one in my tool bag in the truck. So, and I have all the tools I need to reconnect wires. I even have some extra spools of wire. It doesn't matter the color if you just need to go somewhere and get reconnected. So that's something that happens with these lights that are mounted through the fenders. Now you can they have weld-on boxes that you can put back here and run the wires this way and not through the fender. That way, if the tire blows, it's not wiping out your wires. And we may eventually do that, because I'd like a better guard on this light anyway, because these inevitably break. The ones that were on here were broken because there's a guard here, but if I unhook my ramp chain and just let it fall, it's going to break my lens. So it's not very protected. So we may buy a more armored light to go there. Now, unrelated to wiring, if you don't want to have a blowout, 99% of your tire blowouts are due to underinflation of your tires, because people just hook up to these trailers and go, not realizing that these tires lose air over time. And if your tires are low, it's causing that tire to work more as it goes down the road. As it hits the road, it mushrooms out and then keeps doing this as it hits the road, different parts of the tire, and it heats up the tire and it eventually fails. So best way to avoid that is check your tire pressure before you leave. Now, I guess that would keep you from having wiring issues. Now, the other issues that a lot of people have are your pigtail will get hung up in here and pinched in your hitch, and it'll break the wires and your wires will stop working. So always make sure your pigtails are secure and away from your hitch. A pintle hitch like this won't cause you too much problem, but I would like my pigtail, when it comes up, I'd probably put a zip tie through here so it kind of looped here out of the way. Now, on a regular ball hitch, when I have my hitch pin on the top, I undo my hitch pin, I put my wire through the hitch pin, connect it back through, so my wire stays up here on top of the ball with the trailer, and the wire moves with the trailer like that, because that hitch pin is sitting right here. And then I just route it right over here. So it always stays right there above the trailer hitch that protects it from everything. The other thing is, some people let their wire dangle where it's dragging on the road, causing abrasion, and it wipes out part of the wire through the abrasion like it's sitting on sandpaper and will eventually eat through the wires. Or they forgot to plug in their pigtail and it's just dragging here as you go down the road. That's going to cause you a big problem. You're going to have to replace your whole plug and everything. But you're going to have issues, and that's why I recommend carrying a kit in your truck. Now, another problem that people have, you see all of our connections right here, which are not ideal, but that's all I had to work with. That's all that was poking out of the frame. You don't want to be putting tension on that. So you would want to take this wire and mount it, or put a one of those wire hold downs somewhere, to where when this wire gets pulled on, it's not pulling on these connections here. It's just pulling on whatever you've got that wire held down with. Now, anywhere where wires come out of tubing or out from the frame or anywhere through metal, you want to make sure there's loom around them, or if there's a rubber grommet. These wires here go into this frame. They were chafed to the point where there was bare wire poking through the insulation, and they were grounding out on this little hole where it comes out of the frame. So when I redid that, I put a new wire in there, and I put a piece of loom in through that hole, so that wire is now in some loom going in there. I don't know if you can see that right there. You can see the wire loom going in the hole. But that will protect that wire and keep it from getting chafed. You don't want any sharp edges in wires. So I think we'll wrap it up there. It's kind of a deeper dive than what I had planned, but I hope you've seen through this video that 12-volt wiring doesn't have to be a big mystery. It's just systematic. You just go through and figure out what's what. And it's easy to do. If you don't have a loose battery like I have that you can carry around and do it, you can do it with a set of jumper cables. Hook a set of jumper cables up to your vehicle battery, and then you can use little wires off of that to probe around. As long as you have a 12-volt power source, it's going to work. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you come back and see us real soon. We do a lot of stuff here on the farm you may be interested in, so we look forward to you coming back. And share with your friends if your friends would like this content. We'd love to have them too. So, till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come on back and see us here at Markelly Farm.